What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Miami. This is season 7, episode 16. Girl, Adriana, the disappointment I have in you right now. My God, today, ma'am. But let's get into this review. So y'all know sometimes before we get in to the review, we get a little spicy just a little bit. And I just got a few things I want to talk to y'all about. So first up, I did do a standalone spicy corner. Here is the thumbnail if you guys are interested. The link will be in the description box below. In that video, I talked about Larsa being on Watch What Happens Live. I talked about Marisol giving us a little bit more tea about who the explosive bombshell, like gag worthy moment is about for the reunion. And I also talked about the reunion looks. So if you want like an in-depth critique on the outfits, check that video out. I will just tell you a summary of who I thought was the best dressed, which was Marisol. My second was Lisa, and then tied was Adriana and Alexia for me. But if you want to know how I felt about everybody, just check out that video. And Stephanie, girl, why? Why, Stephanie? Jesus. Why? All right. So I only got one thing I want to talk to you guys about, and it is Larsa. Larsa was asked when she was doing a Zoom interview with Virtual Reality T, what does she think about the friendship between Gertie, Lisa, and Adriana? So let me play that clip for you guys.
Adriana. It's funny because you say you're wanting to get close with Adriana because I remember the photos after the reunion. It was Adriana, Lisa, and Gertie all together. How do you feel like Lisa and Gertie's friendship is now? Do you think it's kind of one where it's like, who else can we talk to? Let's connect.
It's kind of like the kids that don't know which classroom they're going to next, and they're just kind of like, we're both lost. Let's figure out.
Not them looking for homeroom.
I don't think it's genuine.
Like they're not like having like an actual foundation. It's just like let's post on Instagram and then kind of go about our day.
Yeah, because I feel like the rest of us really do have a great relationship. Like, I talk to Marisol and Alexia literally like every day. I see them all the time. They were just at my house about a week ago. My relationship with Julia is amazing. I've had like pool parties she's come to. Kiki and I text all the time. I'm always checking in on her and her dates and all that stuff. So I feel like some of us have really good relationships, and it's work. I feel like we're invested in each other, and some of us not so much.
So
It's funny because
Larsa said what she said, and Lisa ended up seeing that and did not like it very much. So she screenshotted the video and she posted it in her Insta story saying this: LOL, this clown. Do you want me to give you guys the reality? Reality check for the last 10 years. Let's go. At Gertie and at the real Adriana Menudo. Marisol and Alexia haven't spoken to Larsa for 10 years. While she was with the Kardashians, she came back when she lost her job. And to be honest, that may well be true. It probably is true. But I will say, again, I still feel this way that I have been feeling about Lisa, Gertie, and Adriana's friendship. I don't think it's one that will last that long, because it definitely gives that y'all only became friends because you got ousted out of the group and you felt like outcasts. And normally on reality shows, when groups are made because they feel like they're an outcast, it just takes one person in that group to be accepted, which we see with Julia, and then the group falls apart. It's the same way with Dr. Nicole not being there and that group falling apart, because it used to be Adriana, Nicole, Gertie, and Julia against the rest of the women. And the moment Nicole left, Julia falls out with everybody. And now you just have Adriana and Gertie, and then all of a sudden Lisa is moving over there to their group. I don't know. I feel like season 8 is definitely going to be really interesting. And I don't see that friendship lasting. I could be wrong, but more times than not, when I watch these reality shows and I see these types of friend groups and click up, they don't last, y'all. And especially with the way that Adriana acted in this episode, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. But it seems like Lisa is going to be in rare form at the reunion. I guess she's going to be, I hope, because this is my thing with Lisa. If you got all this mouth, online, I hope you have all this math at the reunion, because if you don't, I'm going to be severely disappointed in you, and I'm just going to look at you as a keyboard warrior or a keyboard gangster. But let's get into this review. All right, y'all, so let's get into this episode. So it opens up and we see that Larsa is packing up her apartment. It's a bunch of Home Depot boxes, and we find out that later on in the episode she's moving into a mansion that she just purchased. So then we find out that it's 3 days before Art Basel. Now, Adriana basically lets us know it's not basil like the leaves and the herbs that you use in like, what's it called? Like food dishes and medicine from time to time. It's basil, okay? And so we see her in this art gallery speaking to this guy by the name of, I think it's Dominic or Dom. It's Dominic. See, we see her speaking to the gallery owner, and we find out that she is working with an artist from Britain by the name of Chris Rivers, and they're using this guy Dominic, his gallery to showcase this guy's art. So she was like, I'm super excited as she's talking to this guy. Art Basel is like wonderful. It's like the best thing to hit Miami. And she was like, everyone from around the world comes here. And so we see some of the women in their confessionals talking about this as well. Stephanie was like, Basel is like it. Like Art Basel is like it week in Miami, okay? It's a big deal. Even Larsa was like, artists around the world come. And then Alexia says basically that like it's not just a celebration of art, but it's also a celebration of music and fashion. And then Julia says like the whole event just makes the city feel alive and it's a fun time. And then Lisa explains how like, everyone has like set outfits that they lay out for the week, the parties, and things of that nature. She was like, I don't have difficulty getting into them parties, but other people might, but not me. So it's a fun week. So basically, Adriana tells the guy, thank you for allowing me to showcase this guy's art here, but also thank you for supporting the art. So we find out that she's been a part of the art world for like 2 decades, so 20 years. She was like, she's helped represent international artists from France, from Sweden. We did see her help Martina. I think that was season 4. I think that was season, like their rebooted season. We actually saw when Martina had her showcase of her art and things of that nature. So she's just super excited. She's like, Chris is going to get here. We're going to showcase his art. And then when it's over, it's time to party. It's time to, we about to turn up and get lit. So she's like, I'm super excited. We then get this scene of Kiki. She's actually getting her hair and makeup done. We find out that she's doing a photo shoot. Her dad pulls up to the scene and she's super excited for him to see her actually engage in like what she does, actually modeling. She's doing a photo shoot for the brand called Spray Ground. And we actually see this guy by the name of James, who is the chief operating officer of Spray Ground. Mind you, I always thought that company, because I've seen that design brand, I've seen the brand all the time, but I've always thought it was called something like Shark Face or something, because they always have like the shark face on it, on the packaging or on the luggage or the book bags and the t-shirts. So I didn't know it was called Spray Ground. So she's excited. They do the flashback of when she tells the ladies last season at the reunion how her dad just kicked her out because her stepmom wasn't okay with her modeling, and how she's like, in the Haitian culture, if you're modeling, they make it seem like it's synonymous with like being a stripper or being a prostitute. So she was just excited for her dad to see her. So she's taking pictures with this private jet. They have the luggage there that she's doing the photographs with. Mind you, it did compliment her. The guy was like, we thought this will look great with you, and it does. Like the luggage is like red and like browns, like deep, like different colors of brown. And then Kiki has on this really pretty red dress, and so it's supposed to look like she just got out of her private jet, and it's cute. I like it. I was like, this is a cute campaign. And she was really excited that her dad saw her doing this, and she was like, I hope he's proud of me. She was like, I've never seen him smile so hard at something that I was doing. And he's like taking pictures, they're talking to each other in Creole, and it was cute. It still kind of leaves a bittersweet taste in your mouth, because it's like, she should have never been kicked out of her home. Like, even if you thought the girl was being a prostitute or a stripper, you don't kick your child out of the house at 15. Like, there's ways in which you figure out, like, why are you doing these things? What can we help? Like, there were so many other options than kicking her out. And the fact that the dad won't just admit that, like, yeah, I played a hand in you being thrown out the house is frustrating, okay? But I did think it was somewhat a sweet moment, and I was happy that Kiki was happy that her father was happy for her. So the next scene we have is of Larsa finally moving into her new home. It's nice for the most part, but like she has a bunch of renovations going on. So I wonder, because production ends up asking her, did you go over budget? And Larsa was like, yeah. So we find out that the house cost her $5.7 million. But I'm wondering, is the renovation cost factored into the overall cost of the house? You know, I still think it's a flex to be able to purchase a house by yourself, especially in this economy where people aren't like really trying to get rid of their homes unless you think it's the rapture. Okay, but it's been really hard for people to sell their homes or buy new homes. So I think, like I said, I still think it's a flex. That lets me know that Larsa is budgeting that OF money and these housewives checks accordingly, because I went on that side of TikTok with the OF models and stuff, male and female, and girl, some of them poor money management, because I don't know how we making upwards to like $20,000 to $50,000 like monthly, and you don't know how to budget your stuff, and you live in paycheck to paycheck. That is crazy. You need financial classes, because you should be sitting pretty, real pretty, if you making $20,000 a month, okay? And that money, and I don't know how they tax over there, because I ain't no OnlyFans model, but I'm just thinking, like, most people are not getting $20,000 a month. Like, you're just not. No one's getting that. That's not. I think the average median income in America, I think, is like $68,000 a year. Yeah, but you getting $20,000 a month. Yeah, budget your money accordingly. So she is excited to move into her place. She was like, this is the first time she's ever like purchased a house by herself, and and owned it by herself. She also gets this like bear piece commissioned by this artist we actually see. I don't like the bear. I feel like if it was like in a hotel or a mall, it wouldn't bother me, but not at nobody's house. And mind you, I feel like it probably wouldn't bother me if they moved it to the back of the house, like near the pool. But the fact that it's sitting in front of Larsa's house, I'm like, I hope you move that, because it's not pretty. I don't like it. It's ugly. I don't want it. Mm-mm. So, she says the only part of the house that's done is the kitchen. The rest of the house is being still renovated. So she's spending her first night there. We see Stephanie get there first, and we find out that Larsa is having like a pajama like dinner for them. So Stephanie and Alexia are going to spend time with her. We find out that, like I said, it's supposed to be pajama theme. Stephanie gets there, but she doesn't have her pajamas on, but she has them in her hand. And I was like, well, why didn't you just wear the pajamas? Unless she was coming from work. But I was like, even then you could have changed that work. I don't know. She ends up bringing like a really nice gift. It's in a really pretty like yellow box with like black ribbon, but we don't get to see what's in the box. Alexia gets there and she gives her something from Hermes. I thought it was funny when Stephanie was like, this is a job site. Okay, I thought there was gonna be furniture in here, but it's a cute job site. But then I was like, okay, Stephanie, you living in a job site. Well, no, she's not. Her house is being renovated, but they're still living in that other apartment, her and Masood. So I'll give her that. But I'm still like, girl, you've seen renovations before, so why are we acting so surprised? So we actually see them go sit out in Larsa's backyard. They have a really big sushi boat, and I said all of that sushi looks delicious, okay? Larsa talks about how, like, again, this is her first home she has ever owned by herself, and she's excited to decorate her house because she doesn't really have to think about somebody else's opinion of the home. Like, she's like, I can decorate this however I want to. And they show us flashbacks to season 1 and the house that she had in 2010 versus the house that she has now in 2025. So she's excited. They're sitting down eating the sushi, and I think it's Stephanie that asks, like, are any of your kids coming to stay with you? And we find out that Preston, that we saw earlier in the season, the one that modeled, he is graduating from college and he's coming to live with her in Miami. I think the other kid is in, like, I think they have 4 kids. I think one kid is actually playing in the league, I think. I think the other kid, Preston, is graduating. Then they have a son who I think is in college. He's like 19. And then they have Sophia, who's 15. So we find out that Sophia doesn't want to leave LA. So she is going to finish high school out there. And I saw some people critique Larsa for doing that. But I guess I have a different perspective because I did not have one of my parents while I finished the last 2 years of my schooling, because I told y'all this all the time. I'm an Army brat. They were stationed overseas. And instead of going to live with them as a family, my parents decided, and even asked us, which I appreciate them asking, like, what do you guys want? Me and my sister, what do we want? And we wanted to finish school in America. And so we did. And I do like the fact that Larsa is giving her daughter an opportunity to be like, you know, do you want to come live with me? Because I think people forget that, like, she also got a dad. She's living with Scotty. Like it's not like she out there by herself. And as much as Larsa goes back and forth from Miami to LA, I think she'll definitely go after, like, she loves her daughter, okay? She also talks about how her kids are so well behaved and so disciplined that it's like they make her job easy. So she's just like, I know we'll be okay as a family. So while they're sitting there, I think Larsa just ends up asking Alexia, so what's up with you? After Alexia ends up saying, what are you going to do with this big house? And Larsa was like, I don't know. And Alexia was like, you gonna fill it with men? And Stephanie was like, no, she not. And they all had like a really cute laugh. Going back to what Larsa said about like, what's up with you and Todd? Alexia basically says that they're dating and just having fun. Larsa ends up asking her, and I think Stephanie as well was like, so what's up with the divorce? And if you remember, Todd got in trouble by the courts because he put in a petition for divorce, but yet he hasn't done anything to act on it. So Alexia was like, well, it's not over, or I guess it gets voided on January the 1st. And they're like, so what do you think's going to happen? And she's like, I don't really know. And Larsa tells Alexia to her face, girl, you getting bamboozled. Like, he's gonna bamboozle you. And I was waiting for Alexia to get an attitude and blow up like she normally does, but she actually says, you know what, you're right. She was like, I've given him too much power, and it's all because I wanted to like choose peace. Like, I wanted peace, but I know this is not peace. So in the confessional, I think it was Stephanie that says, you know, Alexia needs to put her foot down, and also she needs to be the one to set the tone of this relationship because Todd has been given too much, you know? And I agree with Stephanie. Like, I don't know how Alexia can still have feelings for Todd after he moved the way he moved. Like, he had no like regard for you or Frankie, and it's just, I don't get it. Like, I've never been in a place or been in a relationship where I wanted to be attached to somebody that badly that I would just allow myself to be played with in such a way. And I hope I'm never like that, you know? And I do know it's Alexia's age of being like almost 60 years old. This will be a third marriage, and she is a lady of a particular age where marriage was sold to her as like being the end all be all, and like there's something wrong with you if you can't get marriage right. But she could also really genuinely love him and be in love with the idea of what she thought they had. And then you think about it, her mom passes away the day of the wedding. Like I told you, that might have been an omen. But like, he was there for her in one of the most pivotal times in her life, which is losing a parent. Then on top of that, she doesn't really have the best relationship with her sister, but her sister did reach out to her. It's like a lot of factors with Alexia, but I just wish Alexia would pick up her self-esteem and let Todd ride off into the sun. Because at this point, girl, he not worth it. He not. So I was expecting, like I said, Alexia to get an attitude. But like she said, she told the girls they were right. She even said in her confessional, like, she appreciates the women caring so much about her because she didn't realize how much they cared about her. But she was like, I'm still in love with Todd and I want things to work out. But I'm just like, girl, for what though? That's my thing. For what? Like, he's just not worth it. But that's basically how their scene ends. Y'all. So the next scene we have is of Julia with the boys and Martina at the house. They're making care packages for her daughters. We find out that it is Christmas time. So the boys are excited. We see Julia's house is decorated. And we also find out that it's going to be a bittersweet Christmas for Julia because her daughters will not be attending. And they show us flashbacks of when we did see Victoria and Emma. They even brought back the that season 4 clip when Emma was pressing Julia about like, do you even know what the name of my school is? Because Julia was trying to chastise her about her grades, but she was like, girl, you don't even know what school I go to, so how dare you, you know? So she was just like, I wish they could be here with us. So then we see the boys put on Santa hats and glasses. They looked adorable. And then Martina puts on her glasses as well in the kitchen, and you hear Julia, I thought she was taking a picture, but it looks like she was doing a picture and a video where she was like, guys, say hi to Emma and Vika, let them know it's Christmas and all that stuff. And then she was like, we miss you. Do you miss us? Come back to us and all of this stuff. So then Julia talks about in her confessional how there's been a lot of friction with her daughters. And so it gives us the montage of like when she was on the phone with her brother, when she was talking to her friend when they were in Marbella about like, when are they going to come around and start talking to us again? Like, it's not fair. Pretty much, I miss them so much. To when she's sitting down with Marisol and she tells Marisol that Victoria got off the phone and she told me she loved me before she got off the phone. So she's like, during Thanksgiving, her and Emma had like a very long conversation. She was like one of the longest conversations that they've ever had. And she was like, she knows that more than likely Victoria prompted her sister to contact Julia or to be open to having a conversation with Julia. And she was like, I feel like we're moving in the right direction. And she was like, my daughters now understand that there's room for everybody in this family. So we see Julia put the boys in a separate room, and her and Martina are sitting down at the kitchen table. And Martina is giving her props, saying, you did a great job with decorating and all of this stuff. And honestly, you look a lot less stressed now that all of this stuff is done. The conversation continues with Martina and Julia. And honestly, girl, it's cracks in that marriage. I was like, what's going on here? Like, what's going on here? So pretty much we have them continue the conversation after Martina says, you look less stressed. And she was like, I was getting upset watching you be stressed about the situation between Julia and her daughters. And Julia ends up saying, after talking to her daughters, she realized, and she even said that her daughter said things would have been easier if they adopted the boys while the girls were still living in the house so that they could all be together. Martina basically cuts her off, and she was like, for what? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would that matter? And I'm like, it would matter if these two little kids were here when they were like in their teenage age so that they could bond with them. But Martina's like, why would it matter? She was like, they would be pissed off either way. And Julia's like, Martina, like, girl, like, she's just looking at her like, girl, what? And she was like, they told us they didn't want to know about this process. And then now they're mad because we told them too late. Like, what's the point? And so then Julia was just like, girl, why are you being so grumpy right now? Like, I'm basking in the fact that my daughters are like coming around to the idea of us being a family, and you just being a negative Nancy lady. Okay. And I'm not, y'all know I don't like Julia, but I can understand her frustrations where if like Martina just said, you look less stressed. She's less stressed because her daughters are communicating with her now. And they're also giving her hope in the sense of saying like, hey, maybe if y'all would have did this earlier when we were all still living in the house and we weren't living overseas, maybe we wouldn't be like so antsy or so like taken aback by this decision. To me, I still feel like there's more to this situation than they're telling us. I feel like the process of them adopting moved very quickly because the last time we talked about them adopting, they got shut down. So, and then finding out that these two little boys, I think they got them from overseas. It makes sense that the process might have been sped up a lot quicker because they have the money, and the restrictions that are placed on over here don't really compute overseas. But that's not with everywhere, okay? Because I do remember they have some strict rules about who can adopt in China. Which I don't think are a bad thing because you just can't be giving children to anybody. All right. So Julia says in her confessional, Martina has had plenty of disagreements with the girls, but it's never been to this extent to where we don't speak anymore. She was like, normally we fight, but they get immediately resolved, but it's never been like this. So then Martina goes on and says, they, to try to sabotage what we got going on because they don't like it is I don't understand. So I'm wondering, and I'm only basing this off of a older cousin of mine that she used to foster children, but she then did adopt cousins. Like we consider, they adopted, but they are family. But I remember she had to go through like an interviewing process, and so did her immediate family. So I'm wondering if during the interview process, maybe Veronica and Emma like were like brutally honest. I don't know, because I'm like, how did they try to sabotage what was going on? Like, what was the sabotization? I don't even think that's a word, but like, how did they sabotage this situation? And so you can tell that Julia's getting frustrated with this conversation. So she says, all right, and Martina says, all right, kind of like I said what I said. And then the scene switches because you hear the boys, playing in the background, getting really loud. I don't know, but something going on between them two. And maybe a lot of y'all were not far off when y'all said that Julia might have adopted them kids to save her marriage. I don't know. I don't get, because they can't have a baby. Like, how some women will get pregnant to save their marriage, knowing good and well that's not going to save a marriage. But maybe that's what this is, because I was like, ooh, stank energy right there. Next thing we have is of Lisa. We find out that Jody is planning this romantic night for her at their apartment, and they're going to go eat outside. Lisa loved eating outside, because then she eat outside with Lenny. By the pool. It's just that they don't have no pool. So it looks like they're having, I guess, like a hibachi night, because there was filleted meat on a platter, which I think was like sashimi. And then the kids were eating, like, it looked like fried rice and like vegetables and all of that stuff. So Lisa's in her confessional gushing about Jody and how he's such this family man and how her children really love him and they always want to be around him. If that's the case, and I'm still standing on that, it's still weird to me that when they were in Seville, when Marisol was like, girl, Jody can't make sure your kids are okay, and she was like, no, he's not their father, yet you have that man around your children, it seems like all the time, and you're also saying that the kids love him. Why can't you entrust him with your kids? Well, maybe that she didn't want to do that because the divorce wasn't over yet. I still think it's weird to marry somebody and you don't trust them around your children. That would be the biggest pause for me if I had kids and I was marrying somebody else, But she was like, Jody is so family oriented. So then she talks about how like she's so happy that she finally got the family that she's always dreamed of. I don't really know if Lisa likes Jody for who Jody is, or if she likes Jody because he has money and is willing to take care of her throughout this whole entire situation with Lenny, because I don't see like chemistry between them. Like, even people I think that like hate each other but are in a relationship, there's still like a spark of passion. But with Lisa and Jody, it just seems like they're really good friends. I don't know. So they're sitting outside and Lisa starts talking about how like, oh my gosh, this is like such a special moment and things like that. Like, I just feel like we're like, this is going to be such a special moment. And Jody is like, oh, you trying to bring up like the engagement again? And she kind of made this face. And I said, dang, Jody. He was like, you hinting at the engagement? Okay, girl. Okay. And he drinking his wine, really not paying Lisa much attention. So then Lisa starts to talk about how she doesn't like being a girlfriend. And I'm like, but that's what you've been doing this whole entire time. What's wrong with you being classified as a girlfriend? And she was like, I feel like I'm too old to be a girlfriend. You're not, because you're doing it right now, And I'm like, girl, you just got a divorce. Why are we rushing into another relationship? This doesn't make sense to me. So then Jody starts to complain about how he was like, nobody will put up with what I put up with for the past 2.5 years, like, and things of that nature. And Lisa's like, I understand, but if you don't want this, set me free. And I'm like, why can't you set your own self free? Like, if he's not giving you what you need, then set yourself free. But that also lets me know that Lisa does not have anything on her own for real, in order to like just go like, I know people hate Larsa. I know people don't like her. But the fact that Larsa could drop like $5 million, over $5 million on a house by herself because of her OF content being on this show and maybe her other businesses, that to me, I respect more than you just being laid up with a man and you're begging for a ring. It is what it is. And so Jody is just like, And they even flash back to Lenny, who talks about, I didn't think anybody else would want to deal with you. Flashes back to Jody, and he basically says, my fear with you is that if we get engaged, I'm going to be dealing with chaos. And I think it's valid for him to be like, I don't want to marry somebody and it's chaotic. And he also brings up how when she gets into it with Lenny or Larsa, she gets angry and uses that energy against him. Like he says something to the effect of like, she'll like snap at him if he's driving too slow or too fast, or if he's standing in the doorway, and like she gets pissed off really easily. So then all of a sudden Lisa is like, I have been a little edgy. And he's like, yeah, I get that. And I understand you going through a lot. But he was like, what would make the world of a difference for me if you really want us to get engaged is if you actually seek out help. He was like, if you, I don't know, read some books, go to therapy, like start to do meditation, give me a sign that you're willing to change your behavior, and then I will marry you. And so all of a sudden Lisa started putting on her white woman tears, because I said I didn't see a lick of tear come down that lady face. Not a tear. I said, Lisa. She was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, girl. She was like, this is not me, the divorce. And I don't negate that the divorce probably has made Lisa this way. But I'm like, girl, I think Lisa just expected Jody to want to marry her after a while, because they have been together for almost like 3 years. But Jody has a valid point. Like, I'm not about to marry you and be married to somebody whose life is chaotic. Because I forget that Jody also has a daughter and an ex-wife that he still takes care of. And so it seems like he's fine with just taking care of women. So I don't think he feels the need to rush to marry her. And Lisa wants to be married. So she says, I don't want to be defined by this divorce. I'm definitely going to work on it, Jody. I am. So he gets up, they hug and they kiss, and she keeps saying, you know what, I'm so sorry. And I said, girl. Okay, Lisa. So it's the first day of Art Basel, or no, it's Basel. My bad, y'all. It's the first day of Art Basel, and we see all the women getting ready because it's also Adriana's day to showcase Christopher Rivers' artwork. So we see all the women getting ready. We actually see Adriana at the event space. She looked really cute in the outfit that she had on. We see her meeting up with, I guess, the marketing manager of the hotel that they're showcasing the artwork at. And so everyone's talking about how beautiful the pieces are. She says that this guy paints like the grays. She said his brush strokes are like Rembrandt. And I think she said he has the creativity of Salvador Dali. And so she's just like, it's beautiful. But she also says she hopes she gets a lot of people there and people are buying artwork because she put in a lot of money. I think she said over like 2,000 people were coming. So it seems like they're going to have a good turnout, because I think she said at first they had 1,000 RSVPs, and then now they're at 2,500 RSVPs. So I think that's a great turnout for an art gallery show. So we see Larsa is the first person to get to the place first, and she's the one that's bringing up this cake. She tells Adriana she looks great. She looks like she's 30 years old, and she's like loving it. And she's like, we age like fine wine. And I said, okay. I don't know about Larsa, because we know it's chemicals in there. It's preservatives. But I said, all right. So then Larsa is like, so did you ever find out who put that thing on your cake? And Adriana was like, no. And Larsa was like, yeah, it was pretty messed up that they put that on your cake. And Adriana says in her confessional, I don't know who did such a thing because it was very mean-spirited. But when I find out who it is, I'm going to let them know how I feel. So the episode continues and we see Stephanie pull up to the party. I really did like her outfit. I thought it was really cute. And it did remind me of an art piece like, what's her name? Like Adriana said, them steps they had them walking up, nasty work. Because if I have on heels, even if I have on flats, walking up that amount of stuff, I was like, they don't got an elevator? Because like, girl, who walking up all of that? So they pull up, Stephanie pulls up first, well, after Larsa, I mean. Then we see Marisol and Alexia in the car on their way to the party as well. And, Marisol ends up asking her, so how was Thanksgiving? And Alexia was like, it was great. I spent time with Peter and Frankie, and Peter's girlfriend came and I really like her. And she was like, great. And then I think they got into the conversation about oh no, Marisol ends up asking, did Todd come over? And Alexia's like, no, but we did see each other. We saw each other before Thanksgiving and after Thanksgiving. And she was like, oh, okay. And so Marisol kind of made a sound like, oh. And Alexia was like, stop, like, we're seeing each other. And Marisol was like, yeah, I know that, but when you don't talk about him, I assume that y'all are not in a good place. But when you do talk about him, I think y'all are good. And Alexia was like, well, I don't want to be like Lisa, where like it's Lenny this, Lenny that. I don't want to be like that. So that's why I don't bring him up. And she also was like, and it's also because you're very negative, Marisol. And in the confessional, Alexia basically says that she appreciates and respects what Marisol's like feelings about this situation, but at the end of the day, she loves Todd, and nothing she could really say will influence her opinion about that relationship. I will say though, I've been in the position of Marisol, and I think Marisol should let it go. Like after a while, it is what it is. Like she's not gonna listen to you, so baby girl, move on. Like, move on, bro. Just move on. Let your friend make stupid decisions. And if you still care about her when everything goes to hell, be there to help her pick up the pieces. Other than that, like you wasting your time with Alexia trying to get her to see the light when it comes to Todd. So they even flash back to when they had that dinner last episode, and Alexia was like, maybe we'll all be hanging out together. And Marisol was like, that's exciting, but yet scary at the same time because he knows I don't like him. So back at the party, we see Julia pull up. Then we see Marisol and Alexia get there. We also see Stephanie and Larsa go off to the side. Larsa is really trying to be in her Scooby-Doo era, where she really wants to know who put the math equation on Adriana's cake. So she's like, the math equation was her actual age. And Stephanie's like, oh, so she really is 59. And Larsa was like, yes, she is. And she was like, I also feel like it was a backhanded slap. Like it wasn't nice. So they're in the confessionals trying to figure out like who did this to the cake. So they rule out Lisa and Gertie because they were like, they don't think Gertie would do something like that. And they don't think Lisa's smart enough to pull something off like that. Stephanie and Larsa, like, we didn't do it. So they ruled themselves out. So that just leaves Marisol, Alexia, what's her name? Kiki and Julia. And Stephanie ends up saying, I will be actually very surprised if it actually is Kiki, but like, who knows? I told y'all last episode or the review, I thought it was Julia. And I'm not going to lie, I was surprised when we found out who did the cake. So we see the ladies talking and we find out that during Thanksgiving, Alexia and Lisa ran into each other. We then see Lisa walking up the steps and Alexia is like, girl, why did I run into Lisa, during Thanksgiving? And girl, why did she tell me she spent $1,000 for somebody to come and decorate her tree? And then she's going to pay another $1,000 for them to take everything down. And Julia is like, girl, what? I spent $80 at the Home Depot and I decorated my tree by myself. Lisa ends up saying she doesn't see the problem with hiring a person to decorate her tree because when she gets up to the steps, the girls are like, we're talking about you. She was like, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm actually putting back into the economy. Girl, that's just laziness to me. Like, even when I was living by myself, I would still get a tree, get my ornaments, make cookies or something like that, play holiday music or have a holiday movie playing. Like, it's making memories. I just feel like if you're going to waste $2,000 because she has to pay $2,000 for them. No, she has to pay $1,000 for them to take it down. That's kind of stupid to me. I'm not even going to lie. That's stupid. Like that. And it's like, you also have young kids and kids, like I said, when we talk about Julia and Martina, make the holidays more special because they're young and everything is like, they're all bright eyed and like excited. Like, why would you not want to bask in that? It's one thing if you paid for that and you were having a party and you didn't have time and you have one of those massive trees that like a lot of the celebrities have, then yeah, I would pay $1,000 for that because I'm not doing that. But if you got a regular like 6 foot, maybe 5 foot tree, I think the largest I've seen at Walmart has been like 8 feet. Like a 8-foot tree or something like that. If you have a tree that's normal size, then girl, decorate your tree with your children and have a good time. Like, what are we doing, Lisa? Girl, So, like I said, Stephanie and Larsa are doing Scooby Doo mysteries because they want to know who's really Larsa, who put the thing on the cake. So, Stephanie is talking to Alexia and she asks Alexia, she was like, do you know who put that on the cake? Alexia kind of makes a deer cotton headlights face where she's like, she doesn't answer it. Then Marisol comes and joins the conversation and she's like, yeah, we already know who did it. And Alexia makes a face at Marisol like, girl, why would you tell her that? So then they were like, who did it? But they don't say who it is. We then see Kiki and Gertie in the car together, on their way to the party as well. And they're asking each other how was Thanksgiving and all of this stuff. And I think Kiki ends up asking Gertie, have you spoken to anyone after being on the cruise? And Gertie was like, well, I talked to Adriana and, she was really upset about the whole cake thing, like being like, who did it? And I'm like, well, I didn't do it, so I don't know who did it. And then Kiki was like, well, I did it. Gertie said, Gertie had me weak when she got up in the confessional where she said, girl, bye, and got up and walked away. And I laughed and I was gagged. I was like, Kiki, you did it? Like, I did not expect her to do it. I told y'all, I thought it was going to be Julia. And everyone thought it was Marisol, but I was like, Marisol is too easy. So Kiki says, my reasoning for doing it is like when we were all sitting in that circle, everyone was like, what's an age that you would like to go back to? And she was like, I think Adriana said 32. They flashed back to that conversation they had on the cruise, and Adriana did not say 32. She said 45. So we then see Kiki before they have the dinner. Excuse me. We see Kiki on the cruise, and my bad, y'all. Like, I don't know, I had a coughing spell. We then see Kiki on the cruise, basically telling Alexia and Marisol that she put on the cake 32 times 2 minus 5. And they were like, okay, girl, we won't tell her. We'll just be in the back, eating popcorn, but we not gonna tell her. And so Kiki is like, man, I wish I probably would have never done it because I didn't think she was gonna get that mad about it. Okay. She's like, maybe next time I just give her a vibrator. So then we see them pull up to the event. Gertie almost takes a tumble, but she catches herself. We see the rest of the women inside of the little art gallery area of the hotel, and they actually meet the artist Chris Rivers. He is showing them his art. They also introduce Adriana, and she talks about him and how wonderful he is. And then we see Lisa almost touching one of his paintings, and Adriana's like, girl, don't touch it if you're not buying it. And Lisa's like, girl, I'll buy it. And we find out that the painting was $18,000, which I was surprised by because although his artwork was like nice, it wasn't like groundbreaking that I think it would be worth $18,000. Maybe it's the way that he does the art, because I do know that people who commission art or who are artists will put in like the supplies and the labor in which it took them to do the art piece, and that factors into the price. But I said $18,000, girl. And Lisa was like, I love art. All the art that you saw in my house on Star Island, that was my art. I was like, girl, none of that art was nice, Lisa. It was very eclectic and it just didn't give. So we end up seeing Marisol and Stephanie finally have a conversation. So Marisol and Stephanie are asking each other what they were doing over the break, how was Thanksgiving, and she was like, me, Steve, and Hunter went to the yacht club, but holidays are weird for me because I don't have my parents around, and so Stephanie was like, yeah, I understand, I don't talk to my sisters and things of that nature. So then they start talking about their situation where Stephanie is like, I feel like I don't know if you really like me. Like, she's like, I don't know if you really like me. She was like, I thought we were good, but then I talked to Alexia, and Marisol was like, no, I thought we were fine because we made up on the cruise. Like, what are you talking about? And Stephanie was like, well, I had a conversation with Alexia in the mud room, and she basically told me that you were upset that I was making friends with Adriana and that she was the one that was on the plane before you. And Marisol was like, I already told you why I didn't want to get on the plane. I removed myself because my friend wasn't going to get on the plane. And like, I've explained to you my reason. And that's what my thing about Stephanie, which I'm not understanding, is that Marisol told you to your face what it was. And I feel like Stephanie is searching for a different reason. I don't know. Cause I'm just like, she told you. And I think she thinks it's because she's cool with Adriana, but I don't think Marisol really cares like that. I think she was just like, girl, my friend wasn't on the plane. I got tired of you talking about that plane and I didn't want to be beholden onto you. And it is what it is. So then Marisol was like, girl, you keep talking about the plane and how much it costs. And she was just like, I didn't want to be beholden onto you. So then Stephanie is like, I don't talk about my plane. I don't talk about money like that. And I was like, yes, you do. Because then they flash back to when Larsa is telling them on the Sprinter that it costs $40,000 for them to go 20 minutes from Seville to Marbella. But I'm like, Larsa would only know that if you told her, Stephanie. So you do talk about money. So then Marisol basically says, I don't really like the way that you talk about money. And I think it's actually very tacky. And Stephanie was like, I don't talk about money. And then they show a montage of her talking about, she doesn't talk about the cost of things, but it's very much like, not my Versace, not my Birkin. You know, I smell like, you know, my husband is very wealthy. Like, you do talk about money, girl, just in a different way. You know what I'm saying? And so Stephanie is taken aback that she called her tacky. She was like, girl, tacky? And she was like, I'm not tacky. But then Stephanie says, well, I think it's a tacky for you to say you're going somewhere and then you renege on it and you just text somebody and you're not really telling them the truth, especially when you're like 3 feet down the hallway in the same hotel with someone. And so basically Stephanie says, well, I only felt different about our conversations because in the mudroom, again, Alexia told me that you are the one that's kind of like the brains behind all of this, and she is just the mouthpiece. And you could kind of see the wheels in Marisol's head kind of turning like, oh, really, Alexia? But we're never going to see Alexia and Marisol really fight like that because they are friends. Like, she probably told Alexia how she felt behind the scenes, but she's just like, okay, girl. She was like, and then Stephanie says, I just feel like it's hard for people to be upset when they can't manipulate you. Like, you can't manipulate me. So then Marisol was like, I'm the farthest thing from a manipulator. I don't know about that, girl. Again, I don't know about that. So then Marisol says in her confessional, Stephanie is trying to blame me for her issues with Alexia, because Stephanie says, I don't know if you're happy when we're fighting, and she's like, girl, you're the one that started it, and Stephanie is the one that started it with Alexia by constantly bringing up Todd. That's your own issues. But basically they agreed to start over because they want to be friends with each other. Marisol says she thinks she likes Stephanie because she reminds her of Alexia, where she just gets it off her chest and then you're able to move on. And she, you know, Stephanie says she likes Marisol, but she doesn't know if she'll be able to trust her, but she wants to hope that they can move forward. So we get to the part where Adriana completely, she lost it, okay? So pretty much we see Lisa and Larsa at the bar. You can tell that Larsa is lit. Even Gertie was like, oh girl, she lit. She hugging on everybody. She was straddling Gertie. And then Larsa was like, Lisa was like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. And she was like, don't leave. And they're hugging on each other. We also meet Adriana's friend by the name of Carol, who I think she said has been her like stylist. They've known each other for like 17 years. And so everyone's at the party and all of this stuff. Julia ends up like hugging Larsa and Lisa as they're hugging each other, saying that she misses this with Adriana. So then Larsa is like, why don't you tell her? And Adriana was standing there. So they take them to the side and they're like, Adriana, listen to what Julia has to say. And Julia says, you know, I watched them hug each other boob to boob and it made me miss you. You know, like, I really miss being around you and things of that nature. And Lisa was like, see, look, Adriana, like, she really wants to be back to where you guys used to be. You know what I mean? So then Larsa interrupts and she's like, so I want to know who put that math equation on the cake. I need to know. I need to know. And then Lisa whispers in Larsa's ear. She was like, Kiki did it. And Larsa said, Kiki did it. And I said, oh my God, Kiki did it. Like I didn't already know. And so now Lisa's like, you weren't supposed to say anything, Larsa. And Adriana is mad now. She's like, you know what? That was really messed up of her. And she was like, Kiki is hurting me once again. You know, I don't understand why she had to put it in writing and things of that nature. And so Adriana was like, why couldn't it be something about my music or about my art and things of that nature? Why did it have to be that way? And so Julia was like, I don't think she meant it in that way, Adriana. And Larsa's like, shut up, Julia. And I was like, Julia better than me because I told Larsa, shut your drunk ass up. Don't tell me to shut up. And she was like, how could she not mean it that way? So then Adriana's like, why are you defending her? And then Julia tries to give a comparison to Adriana where she was like, well, girl, remember when you was tipsy and yelling across the boat saying Marisol was an old whore and she needed plastic surgery for her wrinkly knees? And Adriana's like, it's different. Me and Marisol are around the same age and we have history. It's not different. It's the same thing. If you don't want somebody attacking your age, you shouldn't be attacking other people's ages. That's just, it's plain and simple. You don't want screaming ageism. So off behind them, you see Alexia and Gertie and Kiki having a conversation where Kiki is like, well, I didn't mean it to be mean. Like, I thought it would be funny. And she had a good time the rest of the night. But I'm starting to see that she's upset and I feel bad. I should tell her. And I'm like, Kiki, you was trying to be shady. You just didn't think she would be that mad about it, girl. You know? So then, Adriana ends up saying that, why are you trying to defend Kiki and Marisol like you're supposed to be my friend? And then you hear Julia in her confessional saying, look, I have stuck up for Adriana even at my own expense. And I will say, when they showed the montage, we do see Julia sticking up for Adriana from season 4 all the way to, I think it was, season, like the recent season. So, well, last season 6. So Adriana can't say that lady don't be sticking up for her. So they were like, well, let's go talk to Kiki and see what happens. So we see Adriana pulling Carol to the side saying, Kiki is calling me a racist. I don't know how you got from ageism to racism. Like, girl, what? So she was like, Carol, am I a racist? And this is where I got disappointed in her, because she pulled a move that a lot of people who offend a certain group of people who can be deemed racist or who say something racist do. Well, I have black friends. Because just because Carol wasn't offended by the word ratchet doesn't mean that, like, Kiki couldn't have been offended by it and couldn't felt like there were racial undertones with it. Like, and this lets me know, Adriana, you meant what you said when you called that lady ratchet. Because if you didn't mean it that way, your jump wouldn't be to, well, she calling me a racist. The lady, Kiki even said, I never called you a racist on or off camera. What are you talking about? She broke the fourth wall. I said, girl, and you could tell Adriana was liquored up too. And I said, girl, put the drink down. Put it down. So then Adriana is complaining to Carol saying, she was age shaming me and things of that nature. So then she was like, would you be offended by the word ratchet? And Carol was like, well, no, ratchet can be for everybody. So then Kiki turns around and she's like, Kiki, why did you call me a racist? And Kiki was like, I never called you a racist. When did I call you a racist? And she was like, you did? And she was like, no, I didn't. And so then Kiki gets her drink, like, well, she has a drink in her hand. She sips her drink, puts the drink down. And I guess she was like, girl, I'm not dealing with this today. And so Gertie was like, when did she ever call you a racist? Like, when did that happen? And so Gertie was like, well, I understand you meant this word ratchet once you read the definition for me, but like, I don't think she's ever called you that. So then Kiki says in her confessional, I never called her that. I don't even know what she's getting at. I don't think anybody in our group is racist. So then she's still having Carol kind of vouch for her. And you could tell that Carol was uncomfortable after a while, because she could tell that Adriana was doing too much, because she was like, I have a bunch of friends. And it was like, yeah, girl, this is cringy. This is real cringy. Even Larsa was in her confessional saying, nobody called you a racist and Adriana is doing too much, and this is not a good look. It's not a good look. And then what really made me be like, ew, is when Adriana was like, well, I've been friends with Carol for a long time. She's a black woman I adore. It gave very much, she's a good black and she agrees with me. Like, I don't like it. I didn't like it. I said, ew, Adriana. And you could tell that Gertie was uncomfortable too. Like, girl, what are you doing? And even Gertie said in her confessional, Adriana needs to talk less. Like, I love her, but she needs to talk less. Next thing you know, Kiki is talking to the Amazon man saying, can you get me out of here? I don't think it was the Amazon man. I think it was somebody on production. She got in the car and she left. Julia went after her trying to figure out where she was at, but she was like, she disappeared. So then you see Julia come upstairs and she was like, Kiki is gone. And then Adriana gets pissed and she was like, why would you run after her? Like, you're supposed to be my friend. Mind you, when when Adriana and Julia were talking, Julia told Adriana, you know why we not friends no more is because you're so negative and you're not fun to be around anymore. And granted, I think that Julia switched up on Adriana, but Adriana this season has been given like depressed vibes, like unhappy. And I will be honest, like I wouldn't want to be around somebody constantly in their feelings. But we don't know how much of Adriana being in her feelings is based off of Julia's behavior or something else going on in her life. But she basically is chastising Julia, saying, like, you're supposed to be my friend. Gertie is looking at her like, yeah, girl, ain't you supposed to be her friend? And Lisa's looking at her too. And she was like, Carol's been my friend forever and she's defending me. So then the last scene we see is Julia in her confessional saying, like, a lot of people warn me about Adriana and her behavior because Adriana feels like everyone's always out to get her. But like, I never listened, but I should have listened because this is too much for me. And that's how the episode is. Yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in them comments below. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.